Okay, Michael. Well, I hope to have a very nice conversation with you about, well, your music, your career, your more than, well, let's say 30 to 40 years of playing. Um, and, well, I would like to start now in 2017, where we are. It's May the 30th to be exactly. We are here in your place in Amsterdam. Well, there's a very important thing going to happen in a few weeks. There are always important things to happen, of course, but this is very important, I think, because well, you're moving to America.
It's nuts, but we're gearing up for it and going to do the best, and I'm I'm getting into it.
Yeah.
All the um, all what Amsterdam means to me and how much I love it. And when one is looking at a future move like that, then each time I'm bicycling through the city, I'm going, oh man, it's so gorgeous. And the history of socialism here has allowed people a measure of freedom. So it's a relaxed. Okay, it's a bit on the arty side, but I really love it. But we're determined to make the most out of New York, and my goodness, that's a very fertile place to put your eyes and your soul around.
Yeah.
And certainly in the time of Trump, and the best of times and the worst of times.
When are you moving?
The 2nd of August, we have airline tickets, and I'll have to ship some stuff. And I've asked Onno Govert will stay here, so he'll use my little practice booth, and I think I'll leave the piano. And I'm not exactly sure of that, but we have to shift some stuff. And my partner Zay was in New York, Manhattan last week, and so we were Skyping and looking at the schematics and how much light does it get? Is there bicycle parking? Is it gas? But the apartment is twice as big as this one.
Okay.
And 5 times the price.
Ooh. Whoa.
But this is all made possible because my partner it will be an assistant professor at Columbia University.
Yes.
And so I've been emailing George Lewis, who's one of the heads of the department of the music program there, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's working on. And yeah, I just subscribe to the New Yorker, and I just read now, one of them just dropped through my mailbox this morning about a science fair in New York City that it's only for 4 days now, and as a dad, that would be one thing I really like to take my boy to, who's really into math and sciences. And
How old is your son?
he's 12 now.
What's his name?
Lewis. And he'll be a New York teenager.
Yeah.
Gearing up for that.
But I presume he liked Amsterdam too.
Oh yeah, he'll probably have the hardest personal departure because he's got good friends here that he knows he won't see, and he loves his friends, and they mean a lot to him. And so we'll have some tears about that, and I'll be I'm not trying to take anything away from his privacy, but we'll talk about that in depth, and we're hoping to, because it's all a complicated cascade of questions and yeses and nos about which school to get. We've looked at a couple of schools, and our favorite now is the Booker T. Washington School. That's just below the Columbia campus. that should be good. Larry Fishkin, another Amsterdammer, he went to junior high school at that school, and which was a startling small world in illustration.
If I say that this moving of you to New York is going back to America, then it's of course truth because it happened, but it's not the words that you would use, isn't it?
No, it isn't. But I do consider myself, percentage-wise, more Dutch now, philosophically. The socialism, the outlook for personal expression inside of the music. These are very Dutch things that happened through the 80s and 90s that I'm trying now to relax. And I remember I lived in New York when I was 27 or so, in the late 70s. I could practice all day in my apartment, and I paid $120 a month for it. It was in Manhattan, and it was those times are long gone. But I was very conscious of there are lots of pockets of different music there. Oh, come do this, come do this, and oh my goodness, the cultural there. So I started to learn tricks, like I could go to this place where I saw that the art ensemble was playing, and I came at the second set and offer the concierge $1, and I just get in for the second set. And the Tin Palace in the Lower East Side had construction one summer, and so instead of paying the entrance fee, which might have only been like $8 at that time, but still $8 was more than it. But I could just wait. I could sit outside of the building, but there were holes in the wall that were like that big. So if I couldn't see everything on stage, at least I could hear it for a long time. And New York is a very dense exhibition of the arts. So do you think you will have, in this respect, a hard time there the first year? Well, every day there are going to be hard times with just philosophically seeing so many people close to their death. I mean, just they're right there on the street. There are people who are really beat up by the culture or by accidents of timing, and they're right there. And so I've learned to walk by it, but then my boy sort of turned and faced it and took in the situation, and I had to tell him, you know, this culture here, if you're poor and lose your insurance in your house, you might sit on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign. So every day I think I'm going to have to struggle with that, and then the struggle with oh, you should play like Tyson Sori. You should play like Jim Black. You should play like Mark Juliana. You should play like Tom Rainey. And those concerns may linger in the back of my head, and I love all the way those four mentioned drummers, and if I could go on, I could list very many more. But I don't want to do that now. I want to continue my studies. The practice that I've been working on has just opened up for me again. I've been working on it for 20 years. It's from my teacher, George Marsh's Inner Drumming Studies, which he had. It's an independent study. There's a site on YouTube where I show it. And George has just re-released published his new book about it. And I would have to go off camera to find the copy here. But it's a dazzling good study, and I really love it, and it helps me. But 2 weeks ago, when the family was out of town, I had a 3-day fast. And the last time I did a fast, it also happened that I sunk in deeper to this practice that I'm doing. So the swing came out stronger, the melody came out stronger, and when it does that, it makes me feel like, oh, I just want to sit with my drums and practice this stuff. And since then, I've been exposed to also just the basics of drumming. Involves you got to sit there and work on your rolls, single, double, and press. And just also metrical evenness. This is an elusive goal, and it's a delight when it works, and working toward it also allows a window on turbulence studies. Well, why was that? Why is that little bit of turbulence there? Why? And so but in doing anything physical, you have to pay attention to the basics of the body, the back, and if you aren't tightening anything up. So I've been telling friends, well, I'm going to need a place to practice there. And they start giving me these addresses and emails of studios, and these pictures of this big room. But I don't need that. I just need, I think, a bit of a soundproof corner, probably no bigger than wingspan, that I could vibration free. I could make the floor vibration free. You're hearing I'm working on it.
Yeah. But maybe for a moment back to the more philosophical thing. It's now, of course, the Trump era. Trump got president this year.
Amazing. Incredible. Very depressing. Yeah. And now what's more important is to pay attention and respond when I have friends that Facebook me and they put an illustration of why this branch of philosophy or something that I think is important, he will undermine it with a quote. This is an old friend who played guitar, and I played with him, and I'm going, it keeps me up at night because I'm trying to give a friendly but concerned and concise answer why this is so wrong. And being in New York will allow me to be closer to a community of people who are working on what is the next step.
But is it also the case that New York also will be touched by this Trump doing? I mean,
yeah. Well, he is molesting the very fabric of words. He, with this aloof arrogance, he seems to think it doesn't matter how accurately you describe what you're thinking, how much research you do about what others are thinking. It only matters this hubris and loudness. And so these are quintessential philosophical awakenings. I mean, the Obama administration built to finally let the world see how much this man feels and listens and how much around him intelligence, soul, drive were important. And the music that Obama brought and was comfortable with and emotional with is in line with how I feel and view the world. Has there been any music now with Trump? What's that gonna be? Because there will be there eventually. Okay, I tried to watch the inaugural, and that choir Okay. But let's see what happens next. That's the whole point. Everybody, let's get together and watch this closely. Talk about it. Figure out how we can move it forward. The people whose passions did pick Trump are not bad people. No. This is a point in history where it still matters what you think, what you choose.
But the people that voted for Trump are not deplorables.
No.
Absolutely not.
And it wasn't, Hillary lost it too. I mean, she could have, but we can't go backwards in time. We can only go forward. And so to listen to speeches, to participate, as I was telling you while you were building about the Kenny Wollesen, the distinguished drummer who also lives in Manhattan. He talks about parade and parade music, and that's something I've been working on since the 80s, since Dog Troop. I love Available Jelly did parade stuff, and eventually I'd rather have the kit, but since then it triggered a curiosity, and so I've still been working with that. And
but it would have a different meaning now.
Well, I don't know. The connection of music and meaning is a dubious one, but the connection with life and music and putting it out on the street and getting the goosebumps to happen with music, yes, that's an eternal motor, to rev that motor up, really get that one to go.
But maybe to round this part off, did it happen to you? Did it come in your mind now with Trump being voted and having his administration now? Did it come in your mind that you thought, well, we couldn't have chosen a more worse moment in history than this year to go back?
No. That doesn't enter into it.
Okay.
My partner, bless her heart, after working so hard, got an invitation to teach at Columbia. So we're not going to say no. No, we're going to do this. And in several respects, this, how the politeful way, this part of divided America that is now throwing up and having its attention. And I view it as an open wound. So let's lance this wound and get this infected material out in the open, talk about it, open it up, and heal it.
I think it's more broader than only America, of course. It's something going on.
Brazil. I mean, that as a portrait of corruption. Historically, I mean, it's just dazzling. But here again, then the U.S. steals the headline. Last week's election of the man from Congress from Montana, who the day before the election beat up a journalist who was asking about health care. I mean, this is like, that series House of Cards. Yeah. They couldn't come up with this shit.
I saw Frank Underwood or Spacey on TV yesterday evening telling, well, we did a few things that are happening now. Exactly the same way.
I didn't see all of the series, but that's another reason to get closer to it and to look at it, to watch it, to feel about it. What does that feel to me? What does that feel to my daughter? What does that feel to have a president that is a confessed sexual predator? Yeah. But these trends have been easy to see in in men's history on the planet. It is not like Trump's anything new. But he's a certain high watermark and crystallization of several of the evils of an undisciplined male ego.
You mentioned the beating up of the journalists last week, but don't forget we had it also a year, about 12 or 14 years back, when the Pim Fortuyn people were allowed to make their government, and they were beating up. One of them did hit a journalist then. I don't know if you remember.
I certainly remember the Pim Fortuyn rise and then assassination, and the Theo van Gogh, his assassination, and his and these changed. And I remember too, there was a frustrated young boy who took a machine pistol and killed people on a Dutch supermarket. And I don't remember the name of the city. But yes,
Alphen.
These things are happening throughout the Western world. And I associate with the Western world because the struggle in the Third World, slightly, it has a different color. And for me, these terrorists, these are people choosing to commit suicide in a grandiose way. These are people that are giving up. And I'm not...
They wouldn't say they are giving up. They're starting a new life, but it's up there.
Well, yeah, I think they're giving up. I think it's cowardly.
Yeah.
But I like to talk to people who have different perspectives, and to travel. I like my Muslim neighborhoods, and I applaud the discipline of now fasting every day. I went to the night store. It was a couple days ago, and I realized for school I didn't have bread that was fresh enough for my boy's sandwich. So I went to the night store. I got there at 10 o'clock, and a little handwritten sign said that from 9:30 to 5 minutes after 10, the store is closed for Ramadan, the fasting. So I thought, I'll wait for that. I mean, the fast is a unique way to go inside of yourself and ask you questions about yourself and your body, and give your stomach a break. And I choose to do mine differently, to just not eat for several days. But the discipline of telling, no, you're not going to eat. Me and my partner, Zay, we talk a lot about, she works really hard on her stuff, and she does it in one sitting. She sits there and she sees me going in and out and reflects on the difference of disciplines of being a jazz drummer and being a writer, and I can learn a lot from her, and I am and do, about the discipline of focusing, getting deeper to anything you do.
Is that the thing that the both of you have in common?
Oh, there are many things, but this one reminds me of, that's sort of like a bracing thought for the future.
Okay. Now I would like to go back to the beginning. Well, let's try to ask it in this way. Do you remember how and when music came in your life?
No. I have some earliest remembrances of going, oh man, that's cool. I think the song "Baby Elephant Walk," but I remember I had 3 brothers. Now I have 2. Howard, he had I must have been like 6 then. And Howard, he had these blocks with these little syllables on them, and he put them together, and I still remember the phrase that he came and he sang this phrase, "I Ontario," and so that was sort of a thing that I remember that, and then I remember later my brother Marshall. We sleep in the same room. He had a guitar, and a guitar is a great instrument for in bed because it's light and it's got this whole musical portrait. So he would play. What was he into then? Secret Agent and so I remember that. And I remember pivotally. I remember a big white chair in a room in the house that was near the stereo, and I would put on, or my mother would listen to what she liked to listen to, and like Tijuana Brass. That sort of stuff, and I found this white chair, and I remember these red sticks. They had like Creative Playthings is a industry based on toys for kids that have anyway. So there were these sticks, and eventually the white chair had these sort of pink patches on it where I was hitting, because there would be this. I would sit on the arm, and then the back here, and then the second arm. So I would. And then I remember it distinctly. My mother found an article about this group that she saw this rave review, so she went out and bought 2 records, Disraeli Gears and Fresh Cream, because she thought this was fantastic. And I remember also that I was being my age, and I was flying around the room, and I looked at her, what she was doing, and that was cool. And then my brother Marshall played for me. Strange Brew, and I think I heard on the radio "Sunshine of Your Love," and I realized I spent quite a bit of time just sort of in a reverie, thinking, "Ooh, that's cool."
But then we are, of course, somewhere around 66, 67 or so. Yeah. So you're
10. Yeah.
So I suppose is that really the first music that you remember? It's possible, of course. I'm not complaining, but
yeah, the I Bongtario is when I was 6. That's as early as I can remember. I remember bicycles. I remember school. I remember a song that I sang in a summer camp, but it didn't. The impact of it by the time I'm 10
comes from Cream.
Well, that was a major moment for me, and then the Wheels of Fire record. I mean, how far they improvise and how together they play.
So Ginger Baker was one of the first influences.
Yeah. Now looking back, I'm alcoholism and it's just the ego that these. I mean, what they were just in their 20s, and what that meant. And this was the experimentation period with all these drugs, and we lost a lot of heroes too. substance abuse issues. But it was that, yeah. It was Ginger Baker, and then I've sort of specialized in that, and as I said, this Mancini record with Baby Elephant Walk, and then it just sort of opens up Steppenwolf and Led Zeppelin and Zappa. But then I start to, by then I'm 16 and 17.
Yes.
And starting to hang out with other musicians. And luckily I got, Michael Moore lived there, and so I could go over to his house and, well, what are you listening to? And I remember there's 3 times in my life where somebody put on a record, and like I was standing up, and I said, oh shit. So I had to sit down. And so Michael Moore did that to me with putting on Nefertiti for the first time.
Miles Davis.
Yes, the young Tony Williams. And it's like just, this was, if anything, a bigger abyss than the Ginger Baker portrait. Because here he was working with a group like that, and but then soon Elvin with Coltrane hit pretty deep, and then it goes DeJohnette, and then Billy Cobham, and then it's sort of everything.
I won't. I must. How do you say that? I don't want to forget what you just said. That there were 3 moments that somebody put on a record that more or less said to you, "For now, I have to sit down." Yeah. So you mentioned one time. I don't want to forget the other 2. So I ask it immediately.
My brother Howard played me Vital Transformation, McLaughlin's on the Inner Mounting Flame, and that was I had to sit down. It was like, it's curious that I saw McLaughlin once, and I had to stand up because just the metric. There were cycles of 3 that they were working on. It was a big 3, and then 2 little 3s that were superimposed on it, and it was just the opposite. I had to stand up. And the third, I did it to myself. The Ives record that the unanswered question, and yeah, it's just like, oh my God, I didn't know music like this existed. And there's so much music. Yeah. There's so much music that we need helpers. Hey, so I asked all my musical friends almost, have you heard something recently that's just knocked you out? And so I was in concerto today, and I've got this notes. So what that music of the singer that we were listening to while you're setting up, I'd heard a rave review about this lady, and so I want to hear it. Same thing my mom did with Cream, and you keep the same thing I want to do with Trump and the philosophy of hubris. You keep your eyes open. Keep listening to what other people are saying about it. Does that connect with my soul? Does that connect with my community? Are these ways to move forward?
And can you describe what it is that has to touch you then? What is it in music?
No, that's the beauty of it, because it could be so many different ways. Like the BIM House has asked me now a number of times, maybe 12 or 13 times, to come DJ. I have a carte blanche this Saturday, the 3rd of June, and I'm going to DJ after it. And in DJing, I'm hearing momentarily how other people hear things, but I'm hearing also a certain common denominator of depth and cohesiveness for that track. Like I'll fall in love with the first part of that track, but the soprano solo that happens after it is an unfortunate missed opportunity for me.
Yes.
So that doesn't make it on the playlist. And then to DJ for myself. And the upstairs neighbors just moved out the other day, and they were out there in a truck, and I was here, and so I was trying to DJ for them. I was just putting party music on so they could. And here again, music is something that you share with people, and it's the craft element of it. So what would happen? What track would be playing after that? And then when I finish DJing, I put I have a certain collection that comes up of the CDs that I like, and then to listen to my other CDs and think, oh wow, would this expand this? It's interesting.
Well, maybe this is a good moment to ask you then, because, well, you mentioned some drummers now that influenced you in the beginning a lot. Well, you don't have to describe what their technical abilities are and so forth, but maybe you can tell from Ginger Baker, from Elvin Jones, and from Tony Williams. You mentioned these three. What made them so special for you?
Ooh. Because words are not music. Words are not, but there are certain basic elements of how I can analyze it, how to describe it. Tony brought this concise, fresh playfulness to the vocabulary of the kit that nobody had sounded like that. And Elvin had brought, well, here again, the word fresh comes up, the word momentum, the cohesiveness. It's an invitation to a world of bounce, of momentum. You can feel the dance inside of Elvin. With Baker, and you have to distinguish between the later career where his alcoholism and hubris took over. But I think the hubris was part of what launched them early, just to name it Cream. But it has a swing, a cohesiveness, and the sounds themselves are beautifully placed, timing. I feel the dance of it. Those freshness, the dance of it, the momentum, an invitation to that world. Those are sort of basic currencies of a description of any music or any art form that I like.
Yes.
But here, I'm slowing down here with the realization that I'm not getting it all. And I'll probably only in a couple days from now think of, oh, that needed to be said about that. But uniqueness, freshness, momentum, those go a long way to describing it. Consistency, too. This is from my own playing. I mean, the description, I've been described as a young dog at the beach, an enthusiast. You sort of bounce into the center, and with the impossible to describe, just enjoyment of what it is to be playing. It's such a physical rush. But if I'm listening to myself, I have to be honest that I need to work on my consistency and the arc of development. Where does it start? What comes out of that start? How does that relate? Where's it going? how can this develop, and the completed development. I did a dance class earlier today, and these are classes now where the teacher lets me play. And so these questions are coming. Okay, it starts here, and then, but to really line up the swing in the room, I've gotten to talk to some of my favorite drummers, Joey Barron, and talking about different drummers who. He was talking about Jerry Brown, and that has a resonance with me. I saw him in the Paradiso, a group that Stanley Clark runs. They came out on stage, and it was like sort of arresting how sweetly it swung. I remember going, I was really struck by that, and then so when Joey was talking about him, I was going, yeah. And then Peter Erskine is also one. So and the tune begins, and it's swinging beautifully. And how to get the drummer, doesn't have to be loud, but just this line of swing to happen on it in the inside of that music. And now I'm thinking of the last time we played with our Ellington ensemble. I've been working on this, and last time I felt like the swing got lighter and stronger. And how to get deeper in that.
Well, that was a specialty of Sam Woodyard, I think.
Yeah, I never got to see him, and but that's a high watermark for me too. When I heard Sam with Ellington, and my goodness.
Yeah. Maybe to connect to this question, and it gives me the possibility to return more or less to your own history and back to where it all started, more or less. Is it possible that your appreciation of these three drummers that we discuss now also has something to do with were you playing yourself the drums already?
Oh yeah. As I said, I grew up with 3 brothers and 2 sisters in a house that was big enough that we had the bedroom furthest from the living room, where I could set up a set of drums and just play. And also on a summer day we could set up instruments outside on the porch. By then we had the Hendrix and the Santana phenomenon, and and my brothers played, so just to go in and play, make stuff, improvise, and great fun. And then with school bands, the last 3 years of my high school, the first hour of each day, I was sitting at a kit and we were playing big band. I'm so thankful for that. I was just okay. High school's hard, and it's such a weird time of life. But I had this music building that I could go in and fantastic. Yeah. My older brother, who was 2 years older than me, he was in the trombone section, and I was playing drums. And at a certain point, he shifted to piano, so he was playing piano on a couple of big band charts. And that's a thrill I'll never forget. I mean, I don't think the music. I've listened to a couple of tapes of my very young self, and these things I were referring to, this turbulence and unevenness, are things that I still have to work hard to look at and get out, clean up. But the physical joy of doing it, Hawaii 5-0, and as a teenager, and with a big band, and the Basie Nestico book, Little Darlin'. These are just exquisite. And to spend the first hour of each day of school, that's life-saving.